you happen to know some of the parties involved. Look, Arkansas is really one big community, we probably know people that are gonna be involved in some of these. But, I would encourage you to, really only abstain if you have some direct conflict involved in it. Thanks for that question. Yes, sir.
So-
I'm sorry.
Well, most of these warning letters and fines that are assessed, I mean, from what I can tell, a lot of them have already agreed to that, right? We're just agreeing to what they've agreed to.
Yeah, they have, but law says
Yes.
we can only impose penalties, or the plant board
Yes.
actually imposes the penalties. So,
But
yeah,
it's not like we're agreeing to, I mean, they've agreed to this. They probably want to go ahead and settle it anyway, right? If we know
yeah,
somebody
I
on here.
would
involved.
say, especially on the pesticide
Yeah.
part of it, we have consent agreements, and then we'll always have some consent agreements where we've sent them out and said, hey, look, here's what we can offer you. And then we don't ever hear back from them. So some of those may not be agreed upon. But yeah, you're right. I think when you present, Susie, you distinguish between the ones that we have agreements on.
Yes, sir, and we make multiple attempts before we bring that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, even if he's your neighbor, he's kind of agreed to this.
Correct.
He's not gonna be.
That's right. Yeah. You're right.
Knock on your
That's an
door,
excellent
say-
point. Yeah.
Do we have a plan going forward to correct this, or maybe have more members to get this thing in a better situation, or are we waiting on? I mean, what's our plan, I guess, going forward from?
Yeah, I think right now, we don't have anything in process. I don't know if there are members of the legislature that do have a plan, or, if you have ideas that might be something that you want to discuss at some point, or, discuss with your local legislator as well. But as far as from a department wide, we really don't have anything solid. We've kind of discussed whether we should or not, but it's really going to take the legislature to do something.
I think it's the governor's responsibility.
Well, the legislature proposes the law, so they'll need to be the one that comes up with a law and votes on it and passes it for the governor to sign and approve.
Do we have Brenda Meyer back?
Yes, ma'am, we do.
Okay, good.
So on that, no, we still have the law still in place. Currently, it allows us to have 10. Basically,
correct.
the judge removed the other.
Yes, as long as you have all 10 and you have proper motions and votes, you are perfectly legal to go ahead.
That's gonna be tough, right? I mean,
Yeah, to have,
I mean,
we have a quorum. We got
yeah,
everyone.
that's why I was wondering, is there something we can change, or
In
No,
the
like different
term,
board
we
members.
could Just change the language to up to 19.
Well, I mean, but that change can't take place.
Yeah, until they go.
gotcha.
Come January.
It will come from the legislators.
So we can't say, okay, let's elect 3 more board members or something. It's
No,
gotta go.
we
through the-
cannot, and right now, there's not really a mechanism in place for
voted.
anybody to make those appointments.
That's the statute will have to be changed.
Correct. That's correct.
How we'll get more members on the boards when they act. So I think we're here with 10 until that time.
So, that's why we appreciate this board has always had really, really good attendance. The EPA called us and asked about what's the status of your plant board, is everything good? And I said, yeah, we are. I said, I got to tell you, if we were talking about some of the other boards and commissions we deal with, and we say we've got to have absolutely everybody here, we might be in trouble. But this board has always had very good attendance. And so now, especially with the option of being able to attend in Zoom, we feel good about being able to get all 10 people here, because you know how it is. We work with you on dates for the meetings. It's not like, okay, here's a hard and fast, we meet this date, and there are no other dates available. So we can work with everybody to make sure that we can get full participation. Anything else? All right, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Wade. So, Reynolds is.
Yes, sir, he's back.
Okay, well, we'll just go back to the second part of our agenda. We've got some minutes of the March 3rd and April 14th, board meetings to approve. You all had, opportunity to look at them. We need a motion, on those two meetings.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Alford, second by Mr. Miles. Any discussion on the minute? Hearing none, we'll vote on approving, the March 3rd and April 14th minutes. Except voice vote here, members present. I'll call on the Zoom, members. So those in favor? Let's see. Mr. Reynolds Meyer,
Aye.
Travis Center,
Aye.
motion passes. Next part of the agenda, we've got, this board discussion, and we'll kind of follow up on what we just did with Wade. I think, Director Bray had some comments.
Well, typically, the board elects its officers the first meeting after the, July meeting, is that right, Linda? So, and that typically happens in September, but now we're here meeting in August, so. And I think after, what has occurred, it's probably time, y'all probably need to elect officers. And I don't know how, and Wade can help me here, I don't know how y'all want to do that, I mean, you're still standing as chair, and Mr. Stuckey's still standing as secretary. Morgan's been removed, he was the vice chair. So with Wade's help, I don't know if you guys just need to consider your vice chair position, or if y'all want to reelect all of your officers.
Yeah, that's totally up to you.
So, I mean, it can either just, I guess, elect the vice chair and then the officers as a whole, or if there's any nominations or discussion on the other.
Yeah, what you might do is elect a vice chair, and then if someone wanted to move for the other officers to remain in place, just as a group of those two, you could do that.
So,
But it's, it's up to the board. I mean, however you want to proceed. If you want to take election for president, election for vice president, election for secretary, however you want to proceed, it's your call.
I think we should do the vice chair personally.
we'll accept the motion, for, vice chair. Anybody have a motion?
They want to do it.
I'll move Mr. Bruce Alford.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a vote. Members at the table, signal with saying aye.
Aye.
Those on Zoom, Reynolds Meyer,
Aye.
Travis Center,
Aye.
motion passes. Mr. Alford serve as our vice chairman. Yes, we could continue with the other officers. Is there a motion to, I'll
make a motion to approve the current slate of officers.
Reappoint, reelect.
Yeah.
got a motion by Mr. Reed, second by Mr. Alford to keep the current officers as they are. Any discussion? Those here at the table, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Those on Zoom, Reynolds Meyer,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
carried. So
I wouldn't remember to ask for you. You can tell that it's pretty much involved.
thank you, Wade. Get ahead of yourself. So we've got our officers selected, serve for the next year. We'll continue. What else do you have, Director Bray?
Well, then up next is the subject of committees. So when we had our much larger board membership, as far back as I can remember, to when it was 15 or 16 and up to 19, We broke out that membership into the various committees, and the committees pretty much conducted the business at the program level. We had a pest control committee, a pesticide committee, a bureau standards committee. But now that you are operating with just 10 members alone, I don't see how it is practical to have committees. Those committees in the past usually consisted of 6 to 7 members, and usually the chair would always attend, so to get anywhere near close to that group, it's pretty much the whole group. So I guess my recommendation going forward, at least until things change, is instead of have committees, we just bring business straight to the board. Whereas we used to bring it to the committee, and then at a board meeting, you just get a committee report from the chair of that committee. So what that will mean for y'all is you won't have committee meetings, but you may have more board meetings where staff is bringing business to you as a board and just presenting it to you to vote. Go ahead and vote on.
I move that, full board replaces the committees.
Motion by Mr. Ducky, to just replace the committees with the full board.
I second that.
Second by Mr. Gamble. Any discussion or clarification? So
When they do get this worked out, we will be able to change it, I guess, at any time,
Oh,
correct?
sure, yeah, yeah, you guys can organize committees and your internal business, I think, however y'all choose, and keep me in my lane there, Wade.
That's right.
But yes, y'all can go back if it changes and you get back to a larger membership, at that point, y'all can come back and reassign some meetings.
So, I mean, the business of those committees that we have would just be brought forward, and the full board may have some longer meetings, may
So-
have to break them up.
So what we'll do at the staff level, we'll just gauge our flow of work. And if we see, Susie and pesticide or Nick at the bureau, they tend to have a lot of enforcement actions that accumulates during the quarters. If we see that we have a lot of business, I'll talk to the chair and we'll discuss. And if you want to call a meeting in between the regular quarterly meetings, just to take care of a specific program, I think we can do that, as opposed to letting it accumulate over the quarter and then having a big giant quarterly meeting. So we'll try to manage the flow depending on how the work goes with you, Mr. Chair, and we'll just work it that way until or if things change and we get back to the meeting.
That should be workable. So we'll just vote on replacing the committees.
I think Reynolds is trying to get somebody's opinion.
Would it, and I hadn't looked and added up the numbers on the committee, but if we're gonna have to be meeting a lot, would you rather just have 3-person committees? Or whatever, at least on those committees that have a sufficient number of people left on them, have 3-person committees to still continue with that, where you're not changing rules? Or, I mean, I'm not sure how many times we're gonna have to have board meetings that are getting, people together, but if having a quorum is getting everybody together every time, even if it's with Zoom, it may be easier just to have a smaller committee, just with 3 people.
I think that's up to the board to discuss. If I remember right, the last committee count we had, and I don't have it in front of me, but I think we reduced them from like 13 or 14 down to about 11. We combined several that never really met much, that had, similar business or whatever. There's about 3 committees that tend to meet fairly regularly and probably typically once between each quarter. And that's pesticide, pest control, and bureau. We may occasionally have a hemp meeting or have a fertilizer meeting, but it was the first one we'd had in a while back before. So I don't think there'll be a whole lot of committee meetings in between board meetings, but it's up to y'all, however y'all want to handle it.
Now, that's a good point, Reynolds. The full board's still gonna have to meet to approve or take any action.
Correct.
Like I said, but if that would, without the committees, we'd have a little bit longer meeting or a more frequent.
So, for example, today's meeting, I can't remember the last time the board met. It's been several months. We missed our last quarterly meeting. So we're bringing to you all the business that's accumulated since then. If you look at that agenda, we've got a pesticide report, a bureau report, and a pest control report, and that's going to be pretty typical. I would guess unless something, changes, each board meeting until we get back to committees will look very similar to what we're doing today and what is on today's agenda. There'll be several reports out from committees. Probably looking at a midday to early afternoon meeting with lunch. We'll bring lunch in, so.
To Randall Meyer's point, couldn't we decide to have, instead of maybe 3, have 5 out of the 10 that are willing to volunteer for us, any one of those meetings, and then that would take care of not having to have it all 10.
We could, I mean,
Just have a little
well, first of all,
petition the board.
when we thinking of committees, if just every board member served on the committee, and then when you have a meeting, you don't have to necessarily have we work quorums of the committee meeting, or
Yeah.
have a quorum for a committee meeting. If there were 10 members on every committee, we met, did the business and presented that to full board, that might be workable. Be easier to get a group together of 6 or 7, however many we thought we might need for a committee. Is there any?
Technically, you're not passing stuff committee, right? So it doesn't have, you don't have to have a quorum. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, no, you still gotta have motions, because what happens is that the committees vote to approve the staff recommendations, and then that comes to the full board.
But the full board has to pass it, correct? But the
Yeah.
committee,
Yes, yes.
nothing a committee passes is legal to the board.
Well, it's not final, but you
Fine.
still have to have those motions approved.
It saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
I just said, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm not sure when to chime in. I just said 3 because if we're gonna have 3 normal committees that do a lot of business, and there are 10 of us, and our chair is default on those committees to come in, we could at least have each of us pick up a spot on those 3 committees, just so staff can continue doing what they're doing. Everything has to get approved by the main board anyway, just like it does now. But you don't have to have a holdup on what they're doing to get all 10 of us together. But it was just, that's the only reason I came up with 3. It was the lowest odd number to break a tie or whatnot.
The motion and second on the floor, I can just
Well, we can.
It sounds like,
But
motion.
I'm still not completely understanding. Does the committee by statute have the power? That's what I'm saying. You have to have a quorum at a committee meeting. So if there's only 4 people out of 10 at a committee meeting, but the committee is all 10. So nothing, even though I just thought the board had to approve it.
Yeah, the board still has to.
Yeah,
approve.
so
The
we
board
can
always
do
has
that,
to
but I'm
approve.
saying at a committee meeting, is there, as long as the board approves it, it could be a 1-person committee, right? Or if one person shows up at the committee, because they're not officially approving anything till it's voted on by the board.
Yeah, and this, we're just talking about the board's normal operating
Yeah.
procedures. Nothing as far as committees is really set in statute. And so what the board has always wanted from an approval standpoint is for the committee who might have a little bit more expertise in each particular area to formally approve something, and then the full board just felt more comfortable going forward.
But what I'm saying right now, though, is that all 10 members are on the committee and only 4 people, 4 of them are able to make it be on Zoom. Their recommendations can still be passed by the board.
Well,
Is that legally, I guess?
yeah,
but-
in order to keep yourself from a legal challenge, if you have a committee of 10, you still need a majority of that 10 here, and you need a majority of the voting members present to pass it. And that will keep you safe from any legal challenges that might come up.
So it might be better without the 10 and cut it back down to Reynolds fee.
You know, that, I
Possibly.
mean, that, once again, that's totally your call. Look, there are a lot of boards and commissions that only have 7, 9 members to begin with. And they have committees. So it can be done. The flip side of that coin is, this is not permanent. You know, the legislature may change this, come January, and you regularly only meet quarterly to begin with. So, you know, for a short time period, if you wanted to go with the board being a committee as a whole, you could see how it worked. And if you did it one time, you could come back at your next meeting and say, this is not working. You know, let's go ahead and divide up into committees.
We have to have all 10, is that, or would it be 6?
But now, when you appoint a committee, you're only gonna have to have a majority of that committee. So there.
Which my concern would be, there has been some controversial votes come out of committees. And when you have a 3-person committee, that puts a lot of pressure on those 3 members if anything controversial does come up. Having a small committee.
So, as Wade mentioned, in the past, the way the committees were established is so the board, as a larger group, could have a group of members who had direct experience and intimate knowledge of the particular committee. So they could hear that committee business and bring that information before the board for final vote. But you guys got a pest control committee now, but you don't have a pest control representative on your board. And you got a hemp committee, a bureau committee, but you don't have a weights and measures member left on your board. So you really don't have that expertise that you get from a member that is involved in that business, that we can hear it at the committee level and bring it to you guys and explain it. I think being such a smaller board without the broad representation you've always had, I know it might be more meetings, and I know we had the touchy situation of having a quorum, but I think you guys are probably obligated to hear this business, all of you, so you can ask the right questions. Because some of this business we're going to bring before you guys are mostly farmers. You may not have any background involvement in, like pest control, and you may, as a board, as a group, have more questions. So I just think if you try to do a small committee, when it's brought before the board, you're going to end up having another meeting that I just don't think the committees are going to serve you well with this few members, without the broader representation on the board. Now, if it changes, we get back to the bigger board. That's the way we do business. But right now, my personal opinion is I just think the 10 of you need to hear the business and ask the questions you need to ask and make the votes you need to vote.
I think Scott has a good point there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll wind up having the same committee or the same meeting twice, basically, you know, if we do it with a smaller group, and then we're at to reiterate the same information to the larger.
We're just going to have to navigate this quorum issue as we go and do the best we can. I mean, we're going to work you guys and us with what we have left to the best of our ability. And that's all we can guarantee, our stakeholders. We're going to do our best. It's not a good situation right now.
So, but to Wade's point, it could only mean 3 more full board meetings until when we get a full board.
Absolutely. Something could definitely change this winter. When the legislature's in session.
And it could be possibly no more meetings, just a couple hours longer each meeting.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
which,
So with all the discussion, I think the motion still on the floor, we're going to replace the committees with the full board. Any more discussion on that? Are we going to vote? Anybody have any questions? Hearing none, we just have a vote on replacing the committees with the full board. Those in favor here at board signal by saying aye. Opposed? On Zoom, Reynolds, Travis, motion carried. So I think we work through that pretty well. That should be workable. They may have a few more board meetings. We can work through that hopefully for a short period of time.
Yeah, like I said, we'll gauge the flow of business, and if it looks like we need to have a meeting in between meetings to clear something out, I'll talk to y'all, but if not, again, my expectation is the board meetings we have going forward will look similar to this. We'll bring some business to you. It might be just a little longer than normal, but hopefully today won't be too bad on us.
Sounds like we'll either have normal, longer, or a few short meetings in between that we could do on Zoom if we couldn't
Correct.
all run up here. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what we'll try to
that
make
should work.
that way.
Good deal. Appreciate it, y'all.
Yeah. Any more questions related to the makeup of the board or how we're going to proceed going forward? I think we had a pretty good discussion about it. And anything anyone can think of that may need to be addressed. I feel like we started most of it. Hearing none, I guess that's how we'll proceed with the board. Move on through our agenda. The next item, we're gonna have Susie Nichols give us an update on 2022 pesticide complaint.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to do a brief update real quick. For 2022, as of right now, we have a total of 314 case files. 180 of those are alleged dicamba. That's basically all the information I can give you right now in 2022 because we're still in the process of reviewing those files. But in comparison, for 2021, we had 565 total case files. 360 of those were alleged dicamba. As we're working through some of these, as of today, out of those 360 dicamba case files, keep in mind, we may not be through all of those yet. We have identified dicamba as the pesticide causing symptoms in 306 of those case files. That does not mean there was a violation or we could link it to a source. It just means we were able to determine the symptomology was consistent with dicamba. Got a question? Do you want information?
Any questions for Susie? Susie, on the so go back on 22 numbers, what do we have?
For 2022, 314 total case files. It's all pesticide complaints. 180 of those are alleged dicamba.
And what would you expect all of those case or complaints in or what we think they'll go up by the end of the year? Just trying to compare the 2021 numbers.
We typically
By this time of year, are they?
We typically kind of top out around September. We do get some case files for the end of December, but they drop off greatly around September.
So that we're getting close to
Correct.
most of them that are.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I'm just going with history.
Right, okay. Thank you, Susan. Any other questions, comments for Susan?
Don't need any other years, let me know. I have that information. Didn't know how far you wanted me to go back.
I think we understand where they are.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Susie, Scott's got some comments.
Yes,
on field inspectors and what they've seen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as the director of staff, I feel an obligation to make sure that you, the board, are as informed as we can keep transparently and openly. And I just wanted to let y'all know, Susie gave you the numbers and she gave you a comparison of the numbers this year compared to last year. The numbers last year are very close to the numbers of the previous couple of years. This year, complaints have gone down fairly significantly. And I just want y'all to understand that based on what we're hearing from the field, what the inspectors are reporting to us, the symptomology they're seeing and the presence of it and how widespread it is has not changed that much over the last couple of years. Complaints are down, based on what farmers are telling our field staff is, either they don't think we'll do anything anyway, so they're not calling it in, or they don't think we can do anything anyway, so they're not calling it in, because a lot of times we can't track, we can't find a source. Or they're concerned about getting involving their neighbors and they don't want a conflict situation with their neighbors. So I just want y'all to be advised that even though the numbers on paper look better, based on what we are seeing in the field, the situation has not really changed that much from last year. A lot of these numbers you see, a lot of these cases, in the end, just a small fraction will end up with violation we can prove to take action on. And that doesn't mean that a violation didn't occur without complaining. It just means it's our obligation to build enough evidence to support concluding a violation occurred, and if we can't get that evidence. Just a little backstory in those numbers you're hearing, and if anybody has any questions, I'm open to that, or you can call me later if you want to.
Thank you, Scott. Anyone have any questions or comments for Scott?
Thank you, appreciate it.
I can speak to some of that myself. I mean, I think every non-dicamba tolerant acre we have on our farm has symptomology, been damaged. Didn't file a report, but I mean, I call the neighbor straight, there's no way to see where it came from. I think that's just the reality of the situation we're living in.
Every single field inspector we have in East has told me the same thing.
Yeah.
Just for y'all's information, so as a board, y'all understand, that's what we're seeing out there.
So the numbers aren't telling us everything, maybe a little dicamba fatigue probably is, where you're seeing the numbers go down and,
Well, there's data, and then there's what field people see with their own eyes, and sometimes, and y'all need to hear it and see both.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes, sir.
Secretary Ward's got some comments from.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And I'll be fairly brief in my comments as well. I just want to echo a little bit of what Director Bray had mentioned. And so certainly Scott is doing a great job, and our field staff and David just throughout the state of Arkansas on being out there and responding to complaints as those come in. And certainly do provide really the eyes and ears on a lot of topics. You know, that's fuel prices, that's supply chain issues, and then of course the dicamba damage is just another piece of that our inspectors are watching and involved with that. So I just wanted to share one my for y'all, and I know the last several years have been a challenge with the issues with the legal challenges and the makeup of the board. There's been a lot of ups and downs, and I'm hoping that we're at a level that maybe we can start having some consistency and some stability. And I know that's what y'all want. That's what the state wants. That's what the industry wants. So I think we're getting closer to that happening. And so I appreciate y'all's willingness to be public servants and to be the ones who are faced with making difficult decisions. And we appreciate your willingness to do that, because not everyone is, as y'all know, not everyone is willing to sit in the hot seat that y'all are sitting in this morning. So I appreciate that. But I do want to echo some of Scott's points, you know, and we've got some guests here today, and just wanted to relay, you know, Mr. Stan Jones, the Wall family, just a lot of farmers in Northeast Arkansas that I have a respect for, and Mr. Stan Jones helped host a couple of meetings last week, really just to kind of talk about what they were seeing in Northeast Arkansas. And so we had an opportunity to be a part of that, and to listen to farmers. And I just wanted to share that we participated in that. And Scott mentioned, we want to make sure that the board is getting as much information as possible. Y'all are the ones you know, faced with making the decisions. And so we want to keep y'all as best as we can, up to date on what we're seeing, what we're hearing, as y'all are making those decisions. So appreciate, for hosting this meeting and letting us be a part of that and wanted to share that. I do have a letter from Mr. Larry Jones, he's a farmer that was there. I won't read it, but I'd be happy to provide that for members of the board if you'd like to have a copy of it, but certainly just wanted to echo our participation in those meetings. Happy to answer any questions. I think there's some others that are probably going to speak. But if I can answer questions or Scott can answer questions, we're always more than happy to do that.
Thank you, Wes. Anyone have any questions or comments for Secretary? Just on the, thank you for being out there and hearing, listening to what the farmers are saying, their comments. What's your gauge of what you were hearing, and what's going on in the state?
Yeah, I would echo what Scott and what David said. We hear a lot of, I think it's for the non-dicamba tolerant varieties that are out there. We hear a lot of damage. I can't speak to what their ultimate yield will be at the end of the year, but certainly we know that people are impacted, as you mentioned yourself, or so we're hearing that really across the state. Northeast Arkansas this year seems to be the area that we've heard personally that I've heard more from. And so it's hard to argue when you see it firsthand the damage and impact it's out there.
Thanks for coming and sharing that with us. We want to hear all the comments and want, as a board to yeah, that would be great with the board that letter. But yeah, I mean, we want to be engaged and know what's going on. I think all this table are very much engaged and in the community and farming ourselves, but understand the situation fully. But I think the community would just need to know we're here and listening and want to know what's going on. And to that point, we've had two farmers reach out to us that would like to come address the board just to share their comments of what's going on in their area and their concerns. So we've got Mr. Jason McGee. He'd like to come address the board. Jason, are you ready here? Sure. You can come up here.
Okay, if I lay my stuff. Sure. I'll apologize because I'm gonna cough a little bit. I don't have COVID. Yesterday I've got a sinus infection and I get those. So I will call. Understand that. Appreciate the opportunity to come today. I have a lot of respect for Arkansas agriculture. I'm a first generation farmer. I've been in front of the board before, not this particular board, when some 240 things were happening. The first time I ever stood up here, George Tidwell, chairman of the board, and I introduced myself and he said, "Son, I want you to read the plaque." And I don't see that plaque. I asked about it on that wall. He said, "I want you to read that plaque." And that plaque said, it was the mission statement. And basically it said to protect and to serve. And that's what that plaque says. And I hope that the mission statement of the plant board is still there today. Whether it is or not, I don't know. I can stand before you today and tell you, and I represent more than just myself, but I represent my family for sure. I really don't feel protected, and I really don't feel certain, and I want that noted. I grew up in Poinsett County, Arkansas. I'm the son of a school teacher and a truck driver. I went to college at ASU for my first 4 years. Was fortunate enough to get an internship with a company named American Cyanamid. They're currently BASF today. I worked for them for 3 years and I fell in love with agriculture at that point. Graduated college. I was hired as a county extension agent intern. I had virtually no row crop experience at all except for those internships. But I worked hard. And I was known as that, and a couple of the specialists in the state walked up, put their arm around me. They knew I worked hard and they said, learn row crop agriculture and learn it better than anybody. I was one of those men sitting right in this room here today. And I give them a lot of credit for that. Anyway, I worked for the Extension Service for 3 years. I left the Extension Service in 2001 and I started a full service consulting business. And I went to work for a seed company at that time. And I did that until just a few years ago. And in the middle of all that, 2002, I rented 150 acres. That was my first row crop experience. And from that point forward, it's been a juggling act of all those things. You know, I'm living proof the American dream's real. It's alive. I've taken a lot of risks. I've had a lot of support along the way. Today, my family farms 6,500 acres row crop, and we have a little over 3,000 acres of pasture and hay land, and we are in 3 counties across Poinsett and Independence County. I wouldn't trade any of it for anything. I've been very, very fortunate. There's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears shed along those years. I started growing all non-GMO crops in relation to corn and soybeans somewhere around 2015 before dicamba ever came out. My first experience with any real dicamba laws came two years ago. Planted my soybeans in Vandale, Arkansas on April 1. It's as good a land as there is, west of Crowley's Ridge in Cross County. That's 200 bushel corn ground, and it's 80 bushel bean ground, particularly when you plant in April. I planted in April. I had a rogue neighbor at that time. I actually liked the guy, but regardless, planted late, farms on every side of me. No pre-emerge herbicide, no anything. July the 13th and 14th, we sprayed dicamba. I was at R4, very well documented what those yield losses are. It cost my family $500,000. Went through the proper procedures to report to the plant board. Did that. He actually admitted to the application. I never heard a word from the plant board for 14 months. Very frustrated with the enforcement side. Senator Caldwell called a meeting. They met across county. I confronted a couple of the gentlemen with the plant board there as one I hadn't heard. Well, a week or so later, I heard, gentlemen, that's too late. That's not acceptable. It never should be acceptable. Anyway, though it was a rogue application. I've had dicamba symptoms ever since. Last year, still stayed in the non-GMO program. The symptoms were certainly much more subtle. I will say, I believe this with all my heart, that it was a mass air loading. We had sustained east wind. I have 700 acres of pasture on Crowley's Ridge. There wasn't a sycamore tree that didn't have dicamba symptoms. No doubt the winds carried it over, but the yield losses weren't as severe. You move to 2022, I have 3,800 acres of non-GMO soybeans. Those opportunities for profit can be good. I don't have a single acre that's not affected. And those acres, some of them are severe. They came from close. Matter of fact, I challenge any one of you to come spend a day with me. I'll hand walk you to where it came from. I can't do that in many instances. I expect better out of the board. Arkansas agriculture expects better. Nothing about dicamba in an Arkansas summertime. You're not going to be able to control it. My question is, why should my farm pay the price for a few guys' convenience? And it is convenience. There are options. There's options that work that choose not to use them. You can put any person you'd like to in front of me, and I can argue that with them. I'm a very sound agronomist. You can ask any specialist in this state. I've been at this a long time. Got a lot of miles under my tail. There are specialists that know more than me, but I'm very well rounded. And there are options. And it It is simply convenience, it's simply profit, and the costs are great. One of the reasons I'll argue, Miss Susie, that the complaints are down, is it's forced people to plant the other trades. I have always grown a few traded soybeans in with my non-GMO because I want to see what the yields are. I hear the argument routinely that, you know, I gotta have it, the yields are better. I can prove that otherwise, as long as I can keep their dicamba off my crop. Be happy to prove that otherwise. You know, we've got a problem in the state. Arkansas agriculture should still thrive. It will thrive, but we do need to do better. We do. I'll get in the middle with any person that these late summertime, high heat, high humidity applications have to stop. They just do. And if a grower's gonna find himself in that spot because he, farm's big enough, he can't get to everything, I resemble that. I'm that guy too. I have trouble getting to everything. Make other decisions. There's other technologies out there that you can farm, turn row to turn row. You know, please, I mean, I'm asking, we expect better than that. Feel free to stop me at, anytime. I don't want to take up any more time than I have to, but I will ask, you know, where's the line? You know, where is that line where it's okay and it's acceptable to hurt a neighbor, whether it's a single tree, a garden? You know, where is that line? It doesn't matter. Size is not relative to this. And I asked that question, you know, I know a lot of people, a lot of farmers, a lot of good farmers. I know a lot of farmers that spray dicamba because everybody around them do. They're good people. They're good friends of mine. 1 minute, they feel like they have to, sir. 1 minute, please. Anyway, they look for direction, and that direction starts at this board. And I will tell you, as an Arkansas farmer, as a citizen of this state, I expect different than what we've had. And I beg, please, to do something different than what we've had. And I'll close that statement.
Thank you, Jason. We got any questions or comments? Well, I'll just say, I think I sympathize with, what you said and understand it firsthand. I think we've, moved away from protecting, a non-dicamba tolerant farmer, this board has. And that's the way when we moved the date to late June, I think we've heard guys like Victor McGee. That's just the fact of what's happened. You know, that's what we're all here dealing with. If you're not growing dicamba tolerant soybeans or crops, garden, orchard, we're in a bad spot. So thank you to hear those comments, and I thank you for coming to speak to the board.
Thank you.
We also have another farmer, Mr. Frank Brinkley, like me, Binkley? No R. No R, okay. I've seen it both ways, so. Sorry.
I want to thank you for letting me be here, speaking on behalf of a group from Randolph, Lawrence, and Greene County. For the most part, until this year, I haven't had any damage, been slight damage. This year, totally different. 100% of my acres affected. It all started 1st of July. All my beans were early R1 to R2, late R2, early R3. You know, what I've understood, that's the worst time to get hit. Extension service, their only answer from the university is keep watering, don't let them stress, they'll grow out of it within a week or two. That didn't happen. It's lasted until end of June or in July, 1st of August. All the beans stunted, basically not growing very little. You know, that's prime growing time. Beans are flowering, putting on pods, middle of July. Hot, you're watering, you're pushing, they're not doing anything. Sickening. You know, from what I've heard, best case scenario, getting hit in the reproductive stage at that is 10%. You know, my early beans last year, 80 to 85 bushel, rest of them, you know, mid-50s, early low 60s, you know, my later turn beans. So, you know, just for easy math, 60 bushel across the board, you know, 10%, that's 6 bushel. I'm a small farmer, 500 acres of soybeans, what I've got this year, that's 3,000 bushel. At $15, that's $45,000 out of my pocket. I don't know anybody in here that wouldn't be a little bit upset about $45,000 coming out of your pocket 1 year. But, you know, from the beginning, numerous researchers from multiple states have all said the same thing. Bad technology, it vaporizes, goes into the atmosphere, three days later goes for miles. So what are you supposed to do? You know, as far as the plant board goes, we all felt like we've been thrown to the wolves and told us to, you know, just survive the best you can. You know, it no fault to the enforcement of the plant board. They can't, most cases, they can't do a thing about it. They can't determine where it comes from. It's wide scale atmospheric loading going across the landscape and just settling out for days. You know, I don't know if my beans would have been hit one time, maybe they would have come out of it in 2 weeks. But maybe they were hit over and over for week, 2 weeks at a time and continually cause damage where they didn't come out of it. But, you know, with the vaporization, they can't determine where it come from, who done it. Majority of my fields, some of them are a mile or more from the nearest dicamba bean, and those farmers are saying they didn't spray dicamba, whether they did or not. You know, buffer zone's 1/4 mile, and I don't have anything for a mile or more from me, but yet I still got damage. So what are you supposed to do about that? You know, if the plant board could step in and actually do anything, it wouldn't matter, because it's still gonna happen no matter what, because of the volatilization, moving with the wind. I mean, if every single person followed everything to the T, it's not gonna stop a thing. You know, but next year I could solve all my damage problems by planting dicamba, enlist or extend flex, spray just Liberty, do all my residuals just like I'm doing, keep my crop still clean, but not have the dicamba damage. You know, I could drive 60 miles an hour down and pick up every single field that's dicamba and non-dicamba going that fast. So it's pretty obvious, but you know, if I go in and plant dicamba beans next year, that's only solving one problem. And the biggest thing that we're all worried about is the long-term environmental damage that this is doing to the Arkansas landscape. You know, Mr. Jones told me about his grandmother, his mother, I'm sorry. 96 years old, still farm, puts out a big garden every year. She's not gonna get a thing off of her garden this year because of the dicamba damage. So, you know, maybe these soybeans are the canary in the coal mine, telling us what this is doing to our landscape. You know, it's going into the atmosphere, widespread coverage over every single thing in the area. You know, what's the long-term damage to the timber? You know, what are we supposed to do when we start having massive timber die-offs? And you can't reverse that. That's generational damage that our grandkids will see the damage from. You know, that's our biggest concern. It's the unknown. 10 years down the road after this, just continually over and over and over. November 15th, 2015. Age 37. I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. Had a tumor on the spine. 3 centimeter tumor, had to have that removed. Part of my vertebrae pinned up between the vertebrae below and above it to stabilize it. By that, after that was a month later, I was in UAMS, going through 3 rounds of high dosage chemo with 2 stem cell transplants, followed by 5.5 years of maintenance chemo. That wakes you up from what you're exposed to every day. I know some people are genetically more susceptible to cell mutations that cause cancer, but you know, what causes those, triggers those mutations? You know, every day I think about what I'm handling, what I'm dealing with. If that's gonna cause something like that, you know, to me, my son, to my wife, to my family. And if this is, you know, going into the atmosphere in widespread across the landscape, everybody's breathing. You know, auxin herbicides, how they work is rapid cell growth and replication in the plant. And the plant basically grows itself to death. So it's rapid cell growth, you know, that's how cancer starts. And I'm not saying this is gonna cause cancer, but who knows long term with you breathing that from year to year. So, I mean, this is bigger than soybean damage. This is damage to every single person in the state. Are we supposed to tell, you know, a conventional soybean farmer or a gardener or anybody that they don't matter because somebody's got to have an easier way to get their crops spread? He said there's options. There's different options that work. I don't care what they say. It's working for us. It's working for everybody I represent today because that's what we're doing because we don't want to spray that. And, you know, it may be more work, but sometimes a little more work's worth everybody else.
1 minute.
Well, that's the gist of my speech. I thank you for being here. We're concerned about the bigger picture, not just the soybean crop. It's really got us concerned. I don't, you know, just in my lifetime, Delta insecticide 4 gram aerosol has been removed from the market because of environmental damage. And I don't feel this is any different.
And I'll thank you, Mr. McLean. Do we have any comments or questions for Mr. Benton? Thank you. And again, I sympathize and understand everything you said here today and appreciate you being here to express your thoughts and concerns with it. All valid, all true. I think we've all seen what Mr. Mickle was talking about. The simple fact is, I think we've been forced into it by there and with that the technology that we're dealing with today. I mean, it's just the nature of what we're doing, and like I said, I think we've gone away from protecting guys, farmers, landowners, gardener, whomever that doesn't want dicamba on their property. I mean, it's a hard thing to say, hard thing to control. You know, as the board, as a department, I mean, I think it's been proven that enforcement is very tough. I mean, we're not designed to enforce what's been going on in the landscape. A lot of guys are left out to dry or unprotected, and that's where we are. I don't like it. Don't know that there, aside from maybe moving a spray date back, there's much we can do about it. I think it's been proven in the last several years. I think we tried to find our way out of it, gate our way out of it. This is where we are. Any other members have a comment?
Well, it's obvious that we still have problems. And we're here to represent everybody. Farmers, everybody, and that's what we need to do.
If there's a direction the board wants to take, to try to mitigate it, I'm open to it and can do it. Or at least try. And we may move away from some of that. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, would I be out of line? I said one word or two.
No, oh, well,
I'm Stan Jones, and we've had a couple of meetings, and I'm super concerned. And now you go to public, so individual, and I'm not gonna say them few words.
We need our Zoom audience to be, keep up with me.
Certainly didn't intend to say very much, but another aspect that I want to talk about, and thank you, Frank, and thank you, Jason, for what y'all said. And, you know, we've just come to a point that we have to be concerned about our whole state, our trees, our sycamores, our pecan trees, our acorn trees. At my lodge, I have trees that are dying right now. I mean, several trees that are dying. Had bushes last year that we had shrubbery we had to replace. Sure, I'm concerned about beans. I plant the regular beans like everybody else. I don't do any dicamba because I just can't do that to our environment. If I was to plant dicamba beans next year, I'm still not going to spray that chemical. I don't think it's good for us over the next 20 years. We had a guy at our lodge that this farmer sprayed. He had video of it. And Director Bray and David and these people are doing a great job. They are really doing a great job. And Wes, thank you for what you're doing. And sometimes you can just do so much and that's it. But these guys are out there, they're very aware of what's going on. This guy at our lodge sold a video of a farmer at 9 o'clock in the morning sprayed a bean field and it bordered his yard and dog kennel. That was at 9 o'clock. That afternoon, all 5 of his dogs were dead. These were $10,000 a piece dog. I would think that it would be other things mixed with the dicamba. It wasn't just the dicamba. I'm sure a gas was created, but all 5 of his dogs were killed. And it's documented. You know, this is a bigger thing. It's like Frank said, this is much bigger than just making a few more bushels of soybeans. And all these beans that the deer eat, these crinkled up leaves, and then we turn around and eat some of the deer, the cattle. This is going on grass. We're eating cattle. This is much, much larger than just how many more bushels of soybeans can I make this year? Thank you.
Mr. Jones, was there an autopsy done on those dogs?
You know, I think so. The longer, and I think he's going to appear in front of legislation and talk. Senator Caldwell was at the meeting and saw it and asked him, I think, to speak as well. He didn't. His grandpa owned the ground. A farmer farmed it. And this young man thinks that eventually he'll probably own the farm. And his grandpa asked him not to do anything about it. He is sick to his stomach because his 5 hunting dogs were killed.
I would be too.
He can't even hardly talk about it, but because his grandpa owns the land, and he said, don't get into it. Let's just not do this. And you know how hot days are and the gas that can be created and any chemicals. I sprayed chemicals for 45 years. farm around 7,000 or 8,000 acres, and I've mixed a lot of chemicals and did all of my spraying. There's times when I poured the chemical in, if the wind changed, you had to get out of the way. Now, that, if you breathe that stuff, I mean, it can be very toxic. And so a gas was created and probably, this dog swelled up. I mean, they had white saliva coming out of their mouth, and in 5 or 6 hours, they were dead. I mean, he's got pictures, got a video, every bit of it. And some of the people in this room has seen that. But I guess the whole point of this is much, much greater than just making a few more soybeans or a few more bowls of cotton. We have the state of Arkansas, which is a great state. We grow a lot of things. My mother completely killed her garden, had to abandon her garden. She didn't get a tomato out of her garden. Got plants that tall and not a tomato on it. Got plants this tall, 20 or 30 tomatoes on it. They look like pears. And thank y'all.
Mr. Jones. Again, just it's good for the board to hear those comments. It's just what's happening in the state, that's unfortunate. Yes, any more comments along that regard by the board? We'll continue with their meeting here. We've got some actions from Ms. Susie to review.
So, Mr. Chairman, real quick, go ahead, Suzie. I just want to set you up. Mr. Center has a few he needs to abstain from voting on, and I just want to make sure, Wade, that we're all good and clear with this, how that process is going to work. So basically, you're aware of the one, Suzie.
Yes,
You're going to identify them.
What I'm gonna do is have y'all vote on these groups, and when we get ready to vote, what I'd like to do is let Mr. Center speak up and say the ones he'd like to abstain from, to get it on record.
Within each group.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And, after hearing Wade's comments, abstaining, really only one for sure I need to abstain from. So it's not that big of a deal.
Thank you, Travis. Y'all received these ahead of time. We have approximately 88 actions to review. What we've been doing in the past is doing these in groups. I have a short summary in an Excel spreadsheet, and I have a more detailed summary that we sent y'all ahead of time. What I'd like to do is vote on these in groups. If you have any questions about a specific one, feel free to wave your hand, stop me. I'll be happy to explain. Matthew, am I good to proceed?
Yeah.
The first set, I'm gonna do numbers 1 through 26. I'm looking at attachment 2, the Excel spreadsheet. These are warning letters. I would like to ask the board to approve warning letters 1 through 26.
What's the action of the board on the warning letters?
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Stuckey, second by Mr. Alford. Any discussion on the warning letters? You've had a chance to look at them, review them. Any questions for Susie on what speaking there? Hearing none. Those at the table signify by saying aye. Opposed? On Zoom, Randall Meyer. Motion carried.
Okay, I'm gonna move to consent agreement at the bottom of page 1. I'm just gonna do numbers 27 through 29. And I'd like to point out, we have classes by some of these that say class H and class F. Class H means dicamba, class F is 2,4-D. So if you're looking to figure out what the violation, the pesticide pertains to, quick reference, that's what that means. Signed consent agreements, these were signed, these were not contested. Items number 27 through 29, I'd like to ask the board to vote on.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Alford, second by Mr. Gammon. Accept the signed consent agreements. Those in favor, signify by saying aye. On Zoom, Bill Meyer,
Aye.
Travis Center,
Aye.
motion carried.
Okay, gonna move to page 2. These are consent agreements. These are not necessarily signed. We do have a delivery receipt, or we attempted multiple deliveries and hand deliveries. We made special effort upon request of the board. During COVID, we got a lot of the certified receipts back that said COVID. There was no signature on them. So we made multiple attempts to send these out. The field staff did a great job trying to help us hand deliver a lot of them. So these had multiple attempts before bringing this to the board. I would like to ask the board to vote on numbers 30 through 55 on page 2.
So these consent agreements, either we're confident they received or were notified on these. And so by no response, it's accepting the violation.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll comment, our notice to them tells them that if you do want to contest it, to make sure you contact us within a certain amount of time. We have not heard back from them.
Thank you.
And they're sent regular mail at the same time they're sent certified mail on the first attempt.
Thank you, Steve. What's the action of the board on consent agreements?
Come on.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Alford, second by Mr. Miles, to accept consent agreements. Those in favor? Those opposed? On Zoom, Real Meyer,
Aye.
Center,
Aye.
motion carried.
Turn to the next page. Items, these are broken up by the alleged violator. Numbers 56 through 66, these are settlement agreements that were negotiated through our attorney and the respondent's attorney. Got any questions? Michael Bynum and Wade are in the room, but I'd like to ask the board to vote on items number 56 through 66. Signed attorney settlement agreements.
Good. Boy, these are, I'm just looking at case numbers. These are 2016 cases and 2017 cases, and there's kinds of cases here. So, yeah, we're just trying to, I guess we get a comment from council here.
Sure, we followed up with some cases where the alleged violator was represented by counsel. In particular, looked at a time period between for enforcement actions greater than 5 years old. We talked and worked with them to see what we could do to settle them. And what you see in front of them are what were agreed upon and signed through consent agreements.
This is a one-time fine for everything.
Yes, sir.
And this is, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is in keeping with the settlement procedures that the plant board had actually voted on.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Another thing to point out is that due to the plant board's rules, whenever you have the look back period for saying, whether it's someone is a, first time violator, second time violator, third time violator, all of these were beyond that. So even if they were signed at, the day after the alleged violation, then, that time would have already passed and it would have been not considered in the future as a subsequent violation. So it's part of clearing out the backlog that occurred during the 2016, 2017 and subsequent growing seasons. A lot of them are violations that occurred under previous versions of the rule that do not exist any longer. And given all of those legal complexities, the amount of time that has passed, the interest of getting through the backlog so we can move on to more recent cases, in addition to the passage of time, not being able to find witnesses, people who are inspectors moving on to other jobs and things of that nature. We thought it was in the best interest of everyone to go ahead and get them on record to signing off to a violation And then moving on to subsequent cases that are more recent in time that you have better influence on.
And these, I think up through 2018, there was, to get to a egregious violation, there was different, we had to prove significant damage.
That's
towards the
correct.
tank at that time, so
That's correct. We had to prove significant off-target damage. Right. And in those particular cases, those would be difficult to do.
right. So, anyway, any more questions or comments on these signed attorney settlements? Number 56 through 66.
And just one, following up on Bruce, so then the single amount for, that's listed is for all of those, okay?
Any more questions, comments? Action of the board.
Move we accept.
I'll say.
Moved by Mr. Gamble, second by Mr. Stuckey. Those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
On Zoom, Randall Meyer, Travis Center,
Aye.
motion carried.
Okay, the next section is number 67 through 79. Again, this is one violator, and this is another signed attorney settlement agreement. And as you can see, this is case files in year 17 or 18. And the total amount agreed upon is over to the farm. Calling in the right.
The action of the board on case number 67 through 79.
Is there a fine for not keeping records?
Yes, there can be according to the.
How much is it?
It depends, I guess, in this particular time, the maximum would have been $1,000, I believe.
It would start with the one, record keeping would start with a warning letter.
Always start with a warning.
The board has gone anywhere from a warning letter to $1,000. In some cases with dicamba, the board enacted $1,000. But I know in some cases, if the first time violator, you kept it at a warning letter. That's vague, broad. overview.
Any more questions, comments?
I move we accept.
I'll second that.
Moved by Mr. Gamble, seconded by Mr. Stuckey to accept the signed attorney settlement 67 through 79. Those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. On Zoom, Bill Meyer,
Aye, in favor.
Travis Center,
Aye.
motion carried.
Okay, the last case, these are still signed attorney settlement, number 80 to 83, same alleged violator, the amount proposed to the far right-hand corner. Back to the board.
Action of the board on item number 80 through 83.
Move we accept.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Stuckey, second by Mr. Miles. Set 80 through 83. Those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Real Meyer,
Aye.
the center,
Aye.
motion carried.
Okay, last block, 84 to number 88, signed attorney settlement agreements, same alleged violator, proposed amount. On the far column in the right.
Any questions, comments on item 84 through 88? Action of the board.
There's a lot of difference between the bottom one and the top one. Why is there so much difference in the fine? Did they agree to that or?
They agreed, some of the cases were actually newer, where that bottom one, we're starting to get up into some 19 cases. A lot of this settlement for us was dependent on how far back these cases went back in this extreme backlog we had from 17. And as you go forward, I mean, every month or two you go forward, your evidence starts to degrade, whether it's the memory of the inspector, whether it's the memory of this. So when you get so far out from these cases, it gets very difficult to bring them back. And our only other option other than settlement is to bring it for a full hearing before the board. And we've had over the last couple of years, the issues with the board. So that is why we approached this settlement the way we did. And we tried to base it on as sound of as we could. But we're trying to clear out the backlog from all that old stuff that happened 16, 17, and 18.
So the $25,000 fine was not in place in all of these years.
Correct.
And a couple of them- and yes, and then I don't remember off the top of my head. And then in a couple of years, the standard for the $25,000 changed from one year to the next. So we're dealing with different amounts. We had the option of actually utilizing.
And we've forever always initiated settlement at mid-range and based on circumstances might even negotiate that lower. So back when we were dealing with $1,000 maximum, you might see a civil penalty for $100 because we started at mid and due to some circumstances, we agreed lower and brought it before y'all. When we get into the egregious, we may start at $1,250 and then cut that in half and cut that in half based on different circumstances. And that is based on the guidance we brought to the board that you all approved. So it's about the efficient way we can figure that we can move these cases through the enforcement program.
But we do have records now.
Yes,
That will probably be a major plus later. If it comes back some of these
correct.
same.
If there's another violation within 3 years, then they're at the second level. So they are on record as being a violation.
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Alford, second by Mr. Gamble to accept page number or item number 84 through 88. Those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed. Bill Meyer,
Aye, in favor.
Heather Center,
Abstain.
motion carried. I think that got you through your enforcement action, Susan.
I will have more for y'all in the near future.
All right, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Anyone want to take a 5-minute recess? Would be a good idea. Okay,
We
well,
also got lunch. We got box lunches. So at whatever point y'all want to break and eat, or if y'all want to just push on through and grab your box lunch and we think it's up to you guys as board.
let's, okay, with the board, we'll take a break, come back, we might see how far we get.
It might go pretty.
Yeah, okay. So we'll take
We can go.
5 minutes.
Recording
Come back
stopped.
at, say 11:15.
Good.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I know.
Well. It's what you do.
Don't ask my wife. You know,
So I need to send you
I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
Not going through tutorial.
I don't feel
Early morning.
I like it. Yeah. Yeah, you order your turkey and Thanksgiving, you gotta.
We don't get these. I like this. Right. Wow. I know.
Appreciate you.
Y'all have a good day.
Thank you for
Yeah.
Cotton, lock, let it up.
They're abandoning a lot in West Texas.
What I understand.
Well, there's your trouble.
Yeah.
You're still Give them long money then. I'd like to end up in that position. I tell you what, we've seen a mint making. Oh, that, y'all cause go to us. We do the same things. It's, I mean, not with our, it's been, I mean, money. We've been. I don't even look at it or keep it. I mean, we do, we do what we
I
can.
look at credit still available.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I eat it?
Okay, all right, we're ready to call the meeting back to order here.
Recording in
and I think
progress.
The next item on the agenda, we'll go through the Bureau of Standards. We got a committee report, to look through and some enforcement actions. And Reynolds back on. Reynolds, are you ready to give your Bureau of Standards Committee report?
I am.
Thank you.
Good morning. The Bureau of Standards Committee met on May 5th. and staff presented us 94 civil penalties for our review and recommendation to you. 69 of those penalties were for expired or no decal. And there's a breakdown, I believe, it may be in attachment 3, table 1, I think is what it should be for you. 63 of those were for first offense, 5 of them were for second offense, and 1 of those were for third offense. We had 1 violation for water or sediment contamination. And I think you'll see that we have some notes there, but before proceeding with that, the owner requested that Nick discuss the case file with us. It was a first offense coming through an E10 dispenser. The owner, Mr. Blackman, had been in good standing with us and always fixed any issues. And we reduced his civil penalty from 200 to 100. We approved that. Then we had 24 other contaminations, water or sediment contaminations that are seen there. And we had 17 stop sale orders for a Flashpoint. And I think Nick may update you on this after I finish giving my report, but as you'll recall, at our last meeting, I believe it was, we were approached at our previous committee meeting about someone who had some contamination and felt like it was coming from the supplier. It was not coming from their system. They had 2 independent systems, and their system, they felt like, could not allow that contamination. So since that, we had sort of started a little testing program that I think Nick will update you on to see where those contaminations may be coming from and what we can do about it and how we might address that in the future. But I'll let Nick speak to that. And going down, we talked about our past due civil penalties from 16 to 22, and they were being referred to a collection agency. And then also Scott and Nick updated us that the EPA was allowing for an emergency fuel waiver to allow E15 to be sold until September 15th. The state of Arkansas had adopted that waiver. In our committee meeting, we accepted all of the 94 proposed civil penalties. And at this point, I'd like to make a motion that the full board accept those penalties as well.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Alford, second by Mr. Miles to accept the civil penalties as presented. Those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Travis, Venture,
Aye.
motion carried. Anything else, Rel?
The only thing I think we still have would be, I think Nick is going to go over some of our current penalties that we have not discussed as a committee. So you may get a little taste of what we've been doing in the committee and how it might work.
About the, we made a motion on the minute of the committee meeting.
I move we accept. Second.
Moved by Mr. Stuckey, second by Mr. Alford. Those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Reynold, Meyer, Travis Center,
Aye.
motion carried. Okay, thank you, Reynold. Next up, Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Myers, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll give you a quick update on what Mr. Myers was referring to. Flashpoint violations, typically we assess civil penalties against the retail station owners. And then in this particular instance, there was one who alleged that the transport trucks on the main region. So about 5 or 6 months ago, the staff discussed what's the best way to handle this, and we came up with a plan that we are going to conduct a pilot study to do some sampling in the field. How the truck is offloading the product into the storage tank. Well, we need to buy some field units, flashpoint testers. So we researched and finally we found some that are of very good quality. And we started the whole procurement process with Fisco. And unfortunately, these machines are made in Finland. So there was going to be a time difference here to get it here. They just arrived last week. And the company rep, he came and fine tuned all the equipment, and the petroleum supervisor is going to work out a schedule pretty soon in the next couple of weeks. And we will start doing the random transport sampling testing. And then we'll present the data. I'm figuring we need enough data points to come to a conclusion that, yeah, it is happening while the product is being delivered. But my expectation is in the next 5 to 6 months, we have enough data points to make an assessment where the problem is. That's my update for that flashpoint.
Great, now, that's, like, you guys took some action on it, we'll have some data, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
So with that, I'll move on to attachment 4, which are the current quarterly violations. We have exactly half the number than what we had last time, which is good. And if you see attachment 4, there's on the front page, there's a page that has a yellow highlighted text, and I have grouped them to make it easier to understand. Within that attachment 4 is attachment 1 for 30 expired or no decal violations. And within that attachment 1, if you click over the pages, there are table 1, 2, and 3, which correspond to the first offense, second offense, and third offense for expired or no decal. I'll just wait for the motion.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to do, we're gonna do the no decal, the contamination, let's work through these motions.
All of them.
Well, we can, I think we could do them all in one time. Couldn't we?
Sure.
Sure.
I mean, unless.
Unless, yeah, if there's questions or comments while we're going through them, we can talk about them then, but we can, just work through them.
On attachment 4,
Attachment 4, then there's tables and information.
This is attachment.
that's toward the back.
You got the highlight.
There are attachments within the attachment. So
Right.
within attachment 4, you have
Attachment 4 looks like that.
attachments 1 and 2, so.
I've got one question. They're going, while we're talking about the no decal. I was just a curiosity. There seems to be several with the, that have an out of date decal. Do they request the decal or would we bring them with the decal? How does
No,
that work?
every business that owns a scale or a pump are obligated to get those tested and inspected every year annually once.
So they request it.
And
From-
they hire service companies to come and do the inspection, and then the service company puts the decal on the equipment.
And you guys register,
These are the
These
service
service companies.
agencies with our.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll move on to attachment 2, which is, there were 16 violations for water contamination. The water was either coming from the nozzle or there was water in the storage tank. So within attachment 2, there is table 4, 5, and 6, first offense, and third offense. On attachment 3, there were 7 stop sales for Flashpoint, and right now, currently, we have suspended, we are not issuing any civil penalties because we want to wait until the pilot study is done. But we are still issuing civil penalty, stop sales. And attachment 4, this is something not regularly we do this, but there is a one violation against a registered service company, and that's in attachment 4. This service company was hired by multiple businesses to come and inspect their equipment. Well, they went to 11 different locations and we found problems with their work. It was not up to what the requirement is. So we assessed those 11 violations against that one particular service company.
But these are, so, okay, so we're clear, these violations we're assessing against Arkansas. They came
They came to the locations. We could schedule mine.
And they were all out of calibration.
The work was not performed.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on that, if you see attachment four, I'm exactly citing what the codes are, what they did not do. It's up in the top section. They failed to recalibrate pumps. They didn't do a good job. They failed to properly apply security seals on the pump adjusting mechanism. And then on the last one, they did not properly inspect pumps. So those were the violations against that service company at those different locations. And the last attachment is basically just past due civil penalties. There's a graph going fiscal year, how much the civil penalties were assessed and how much is gone to collection. Of past year.
Any questions or comments for Nick on the civil penalties here for Bureau of Standards? Here, we'll take what the board's action on the 47 civil penalties as presented.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Reed, second by Mr. Office. Accept the penalty. Those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Randall Meyer,
Aye.
Travis Center,
Aye.
motion carried. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is review on our pest control program and Scott can present that for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to present the exams and then I'll hand it over to Steph to present a couple of important civil cases. So for you all, attachment, I think it's attachment 5. You have a group of pest control exams that have occurred since the last time you guys met. We typically bring these before y'all just for your final approval. You're looking at a pest control exam for March, April, May, June, and July. There's also a small group of online exams that were just recently launched in the last few weeks. Seth worked really hard with a provider and outside provider. So what we have now for our pest control program, for our side program, and we're also going to work on a fertilizer program and other licensing programs, is we have an option. They can still go through the examination process the old way, register with staff, come up here to the office, do it in person, or they can opt to go online. There's an additional charge to go through the online option, but when you can sit in your office or sit at home versus driving down here, depending on where you come from, sometimes that's more cost efficient, and Seth's getting a lot of participation in that, and we hope to grow that program. But back to these exams, we have about, throughout these exams, about 40 to between a 40 and 50% pass rate with the classification exams. We have an EPA basic core that's required in addition to the class specific. We have a very high pass rate on our EPA exam, but when you get into the classification specific, like termite specific, household pest specific, fumigation specific, that's when our pass rate gets down in about the 40 to 50%, and those are just tough tests. And I think that's pretty standard for how it's been for several years. Seth, you agree? So I'm asking for a motion that we accept these exam results.
Second.
And motion by Mr. Albert, second by Mr. Stuckey to accept the exam results. Questions, comments? Those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those on Zoom, Randall Meyer,
Aye.
Center,
Aye.
carried.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Seth Dunlap. I'm the pest control program manager. We license and regulate pest control companies and also storage range, food processors, anything basically that's not from planting to harvest. We regulate that as part of pest control with the exception of some of the licenses, pesticide issues. We work under a different law, which is a Section 6 Arkansas Pest Control laws. For any board members who are not familiar with that. And just to elaborate just a little bit on Scott's, the pass rate for our classification specific exams is about the hardness level that the federal government has said they want it to be at. So they don't like to see it be too easy, but they don't like to see it too hard. That's where they want it to be at. So I do have 2 case files before you that I have a summary of that we took. These are formal resolutions. We, in our law, they're all different. It's similar to what pesticide has in their consent agreements. They're just called informal resolutions underneath our law. And the first one is that you'll find, which is attachment 6. I'll give you a brief summary of that. Working pest control resolution agreement on April 11th, 2022. Arkansas Department of Agriculture Pest Control Program staff was contacted by Mr. Bernard, who resides in Little Rock, Arkansas. Mr. Bernard contacted staff according by the installation and removal of the job performed by Working Pest Control. Mr. Bernard stated that when you turn on the attic fan, it blew insulation into the residence. Mr. Bernard contacted Working and informed them of the issue. Working came back out, put into mess. They caused Mr. Marcus Bernard and his family to move out of the residence. And Gilbert Sutton, Agent Gilbert Sutton arrived at Mr. Bernard's property. Mr. Bernard made an audio recording that had Mr. Sutton making recommendations that was inconsistent with the product label of the pesticide that he was using to clean up the mess that was due to the insulation being left in the attic fan during the insulation removal product. That product was vinyl oxide. The respondent, Gilbert Sutton, made a statement that the room could be re-entered sooner than it should be, and it would not cause any harm. Mr. Sutton was knowingly making a false statement for the purpose of inducing others to act to their damage. Kendall Harmon is the licensed operator for Orkin and the direct supervisor of Orkin agent Gilbert Sutton. Mr. Harmon is also the licensed representative for Orkin Pest Control in Arkansas. Mr. Harmon agreed to the provisions of the Arkansas State Plan for Pest Control and Enforcement Response Regulations, penalty matrix violation number at the major level of offense. It being major level because it could adversely affect human health would be one of the reasons it would be elevated from a minor to a major on the first level. And that was perfection. Pesticide recommendations or applications that are inconsistent with any or all of the following. A, the label. And then violation number 5, which was major also, and there was no minor violation of this. That's knowingly making a false statement for the purpose of inducing others to act to their damage. And the respondents shall pay a civil penalty of $1,800, which the respondent shall be jointly and separately liable to pay if you do accept the consent agreement that was signed for by Mr. Bray and the classical representative.
Any questions for Seth on in the matter of Orkin Pest Control, Kendall Harmon and Gilbert? I'll accept the action on the pest control resolution.
So, man.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Alford, second by Mr. Campbell to accept the resolution. Those in favor, signify by saying aye. Those opposed. Riddle Meyer.
Aye.
Travis Center.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Yes, sir. I've got another one. It's a summary of Arkansas Lead Turf and Memory Polar resolution agreement. On March 10th, 2022, Arkansas Department of Agriculture Pest Control Program staff declared an employee of Arkansas Lead Turf making the pesticide application without first being registered as an agent and not being directly supervised by his supervisor. Dennis Cash, at the time of the inspection by Arkansas Department,
inspector was found making it for at the time of inspection by an Arkansas Department of Agriculture inspector was found making a herbicide application by himself and no other Arkansas elite turf employees present to a residential yard in Sherwood, Arkansas. Jeremy Kohler is the licensed operator for Arkansas Elite Turf and the direct supervisor of Arkansas Elite Turf's employees, Dennis Cash. He is currently registered now and his compliance has been verified as an agent for that company. Jeremy Kohler, which he was not at that time, but he is now. Jeremy Kohler is the licensed company representative for Arkansas Elite Turf. Jeremy Kohler agreed to the provision of the Arkansas State Plant Board Pest Control Enforcement response regulations. If I could get it out on that, I'm sorry. Penalty matrix violation number 9. Major failure of licensing to register agents or solicitors. Respondents shall pay a civil penalty in the amount of $700, to which the respondents shall be jointly and severally liable for payments. I want to make a comment that's also escalated to the 3rd enforcement response policy based on the regulations that was made for so many people failing to registered agents. That happened, I believe, initially in July of 2013, when those regulations were adopted to kind of stop some of these agents from working illegally. So they just bumped it up to that, and they also required them to take an agent at that same time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions on in the matter of Arkansas Elite Turf and Jeremy? That motion on resolution. So Mr. Alford, second by Mr. Miles, to accept the resolution. Those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bill Meyer,
Aye.
Travis Center,
Aye.
motion carried. That's it. All right. Next item on the agenda. We have a report on the feed, fertilizer and lime committee meeting on May 3rd, by Dr. Slade.
All right, thank you, Matt. So the feed, fertilizer and lime committee met with a quorum present on May 3rd. This meeting was really more informational and just trying to get the committee together. As Scott alluded to earlier, it's a committee that hasn't met much over the past several years. So it was really informational, try to get everybody on the same page and learn about, some of the things that the committee does. During that committee meeting, Mike Stage with State Plant Board really provided us orientation on feed, fertilizer, lime, soil amendment, and ag consultant programs that the department oversees. Mike also gave us a preview of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Securities Agency on the ammonium nitrate security program. We had Dr. Trent Roberts with the University of Arkansas Division of Ag give us a presentation on the fertilizer market outlook for Arkansas. And then Mike Stage and Caleb Allen also discussed and presented the hemp and animal feed issue and shared the AAFCO's American Association of Feed Control Officials concern over the state's attempt to preempt feed ingredient approval process. So like I say, it was primarily an informational meeting, and I present this report to you as a motion to accept.
Thank you, Dr. Slayton. Any questions or comments for Dr. Slayton on the amendment to the meeting? Hearing none, have a second.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Slayton, second by Mr. Alford to accept the committee meeting minutes. Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Real Meyer,
Aye.
Center,
Aye.
motion carried. Thank you, Dr. Blake. Next. State plant board to have 2 members serve on the Arkansas agricultural board. I don't know why it's coming, but it will. At least one of whom shall be actively engaged in farming. Currently, Travis Center and Daryl Hess are on the board, and Mr. Hess will need to be replaced. Take the motion for Mr. Hess's replacement.
I'm recommending Sam.
What's involved?
Hold on, I second.
Can somebody-
Vote.
Quarterly meetings, they're purely an advisory board, and it gives you a broader picture of what we do at the Department of Agriculture. You'll hear reports from all of our divisions, so you'll get the picture from what's going on in the Forestry Division, Livestock and Poultry, and our Natural Resources Division as well.
Any other discussion about this?
We need more.
Or comment? Okay,
That's in person or Zoom meetings,
Either way.
Usually attend the noon thing.
10 to noon.
Yeah, we'll give you a free lunch.
And usually
he's not
get a
for
really
real.
good weather.
How could you pass that up?
It's been moved by Mr. Alford, second by Mr. Reed to have Sam Stuckey serve on the Arkansas Agriculture Board. Agricultural. Agriculture.
ag.
That's what it is. Arkansas Ag. Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Real Meyer,
Aye.
Center,
Aye.
motion carried. Is there any other business to come before the board today, or comments or questions? They had a pretty thorough one and got some business done with their new makeup. Hopefully we can continue to serve the state and function, and serve the ag department and the staff, and do our part to keep those guys moving along. They do a great job for the state. Anyway, I'm thankful to be able to do our part as well. The last thing on the agenda, set the date for the next quarterly board meeting in December. Anyone has any conflicts or try to do it early? You've got a Christmas holiday event, so maybe look sometime that first or second week.
Earlier December.
Maybe December, that's usually good.
I'll be out of the country till the 6th of December. So if you want to do it on 7th, 8th, 9th, somewhere there, it'd be fine.
Great.
Trying to get my internet to work. I've got a Cotton Incorporated board meeting some point early December.
We can move it. I mean, we can set a tentative date. It won't take all of it, so we'll have to be moved around a little bit, but it's, for now, we know Mr. Center's gonna be out, so we're looking maybe the 7th, 8th, and 9th, whatever works best for everyone.
Yeah, that would look good to me.
Well,
Currently, they do.
we'll start with the 7th. How about that?
Mr. Chairman,
I can't be, I got the 6th through
I would like to request we avoid Mondays and Wednesdays. We have staff meetings on Mondays and we do technician testing with pest control on Wednesday. We have a lot of people in there. There's a lot of moving around things.
Could we, is that the last few days of November, would that be in a acceptable time frame, 28, 29?
I need to check with Travis.
Yeah,
I don't know when he's.
when he's leaving, we can be gone.
Yeah, I'll be gone from 29th to the 6th. I should have internet if needed, so maybe Zoom might work.
Okay. You said you were out that next.
pretty
week.
much that whole week. I mean,
Okay.
in leadership positions like boards.
That's meeting time for everyone.
I don't know if it has either. It's in December.
Okay, how about the 13th?
That's the big ag council.
We'll get them to move.
Yeah, our council says 12/13.
Okay.
It's when it's said.
Okay, great. Well, sometime in December, how about the 15th? That's better for everyone.
15's good for me.
Well, tentatively, let's set it for 9:30 on the 15th of December. And we'll poll everyone when we get closer to time, so.
We end up with some business piling up and it looks like it's too much for one meeting. I'll contact you all and see what y'all want to do and might have to call it a point. I don't anticipate that.
Okay. All right, well, thank everyone for being here and, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank y'all. We have box lunches right out
Recording
here. You're
stopped.
welcome to grab it and come back to this table or grab it and go, whatever you guys want to do. Help yourself. Thank you again. Thank you for being here.
It's traffic.
I'm gonna leave you here and go straight to my.
I'm going back.